Welcome to day 22 of the 31-day mobility challenge, and we are working on our hips today. So we're going to start off with the foam roller, and we're going to foam roll our inner thighs to start, our adductors. So you'll start by bringing yourself down into that plank position, popping one leg onto the foam roller. We'll start with it being bent, the leg. And then the other leg is straight down the mat. And you could either have your foot resting on the floor, or you could keep the foot in the air. So whatever feels good for you. And I'm starting on the portion of the inner thigh closest to my knee joint. I'm keeping nice and active through my spine, making sure my back isn't dropping down and my neck is in line, so my head isn't dropping down either. Then I'm going to move the foam roller up into the mid part of the inner thigh and roll there. See how that feels today. Breathing 5 out of 10 in terms of intensity. If I find a spot there, I might extend and bend my leg. And just add intensity. If it's intense enough for you, then don't add that extension. Just hold your weight down onto the roller or put your feet on the floor to make it more of a passive position. So making sure that you're not holding your breath and you're breathing. I'm going to finally come up to more towards the groin, in through higher at that top portion of that inner thigh. And rolling there and see how that feels. So again, this one can be quite a spicy muscle, can feel quite tender. You could also do those internal, external kind of lifts. So heel up, heel down. You could do a few of those, see how that felt. Or again, you could just do a very passive position. So let's switch sides. So starting closest to the knee, coming down into that plank position. Other leg is straight down the mat, either foot on or off the floor, and then just rolling up and down in that lower portion of the inner thigh. Notice any difference between sides, keeping that nice strong core. Then I'm going to move up a little bit into the belly of the inner thigh. Rolling there. Breathing. And then if I find a spot, adding some leg extension, so bending and straightening the leg. Good. Again, if that's too intense, then don't do the leg motion, your choice. Good. So when you're spending time at the different parts of the muscle, it's quite easy to get your minute on each side by the time you've moved the roller up and down the length of these different muscles. So seeing what it feels like higher up in the groin, in that upper portion of the inner thigh. If it's really spicy, then just stay in that static position. If you want to add the internal rotations, so heel up and then heel down, then do so. Otherwise, just keep it in that passive position. Breathing, so 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1. Okay, so that's the inner thigh. So now we're going to go to the outside of the thigh. So we're going to be in a side plank this time. And we're going to have the foam roller more at the side of the hip. And we're going to have our bottom leg straight and our top leg out in front. Nice active shoulders, so you're not sinking down the shoulder, and neck long. And then from there, we're going to roll on that side of the hip. Breathing. So today I'm just going to stay quite high at the side of my hip rather than going down the length of the outside of my leg. You could from there Do a little bit of rolling in and out, breathing. So with all these, you have the option of doing it with a tennis ball or a lacrosse ball instead. I just chose the foam roller for today. And then you could come into some of those leg lifts, squeezing the inner thigh, lifting the leg again. If that's too much intensity on the muscle, then don't add the leg movement. This is 7, let's try 3 more, 8, 9, 10, then have a little, last little roll on this side. Good. And then we'll change sides. So finding that nice strong side plank. Elbow is directly underneath your shoulder, bottom leg is straight, top leg is bent and in front to give you that slightly forward lean. And then you'll come up and down on that side of that hip and see how that feels. You could also just hold it still, let the pressure come down into that hip. And one side doesn't have to look the same as the other. You could be more aggressive on one side if you're not as tight on that side, maybe you can go a little bit more aggressively. If the other side is tender, then modify the intensity. So you could do some forward and back, making sure you're breathing. And again, rolling up and down. And then if you would like, you could do some of the leg lifts. Good, squeezing that inner thigh. This is 6, let's try for 10, 8, 9, and 10, then a little last roll. Good. Nice, so the last one we have is for hamstrings. So we're going to actually sit on the foam roller and you're going to have one leg. So we're actually just going to do the upper portion of the hamstrings, kind of where the hamstrings meet the butt up at the top. So you'll sit on the foam roller with one leg and then the other leg is kind of off to the side with a bent leg. So you could, if you can, have your weight forward. You could hold your knee and you would just rock forward and back. You could use the leg to help you rock forward and back. Or if that feels too much for you to be in that forward position, you could take your weight back on your hands and be in this backwards leaning position. As long as you're nice and strong in that upper body, we don't want to be collapsing in the upper body. The other modification, if it felt too much with one leg bent, you could do both legs at the same time and roll. So your choice. So we're going to stay on that one leg and let's point and flex the foot. Nice, so we're tightening that back line as we pull the toes in. And we're staying in that upper portion of the hamstring. Good, and then we'll change sides. So again, one leg is bent, the other leg is straight. And you could either be in this forward position, like you're in a single leg squat, coming forward and back, with your hands forward of the roller, or if it's easier, have your weight back, and that allows you to roll just in that upper back portion of the hamstrings, and breathe, or you are doing both legs at the same time. So from there, we'll move the foam roller out of the way and we're going to come into a series of stretches. We're going to grab a strap or a band and we're going to go into a hamstring stretch. So I'm going to put the band around my foot And I'm going to keep the other leg bent for now. And I'm going to have this leg up in the air. And I'm just going to breathe. So I want to think about lengthening through the heel on this leg, the straight leg, and tightening through the quad on the front of this leg here. If you feel that your head is tipping back, or you just want to have a little bit more comfort for the head, then go ahead and place something underneath your head for support, because then that takes away all the tension through the back of the neck, because we're putting tension through this back line of the body, and I want us to focus more on what's going on through the leg. So remember, I don't care how close the leg comes into your face. I care that it's straight and that you're breathing and you're not getting any shaking of the leg, because that means you're definitely more than a 5 out of 10. Good. So breathing into where you feel the stretch and breathing out, and let the tension go. Check on your shoulders, make sure they're down and away from your ears. Then we're going to bring the other leg up to meet that leg. And we're going to do an active straight lift and lower through the non-banded leg. So let's go for 10. Keeping that one leg up in the air. Monitoring your intensity. Good. Slow and control. Show me that you can own the movement. If you're going fast, you're not going to know whether you are in control. Remember, we want that pelvis to be nice and still, so it's not rocking around as you do this. And you can modify it by not going as low, or you could bend the leg. So again, making the lever shorter will make it easier. And then we're going to straighten that leg all the way down to the floor. And really try now to press the back of this leg down to the floor. So for me to be able to do that, I've got to back off my stretch on my hamstring and really focus on pressing my non-banded leg into the floor and breathing. And then we're going to go ahead and switch sides. So starting with supporting leg bent and finding where we can keep the leg straight with the quadricep, our front of our thigh engaged, our knee pulling up the thigh. We're lengthening through the back of the leg. We're pushing the bum down to the floor. So I'm lengthening through my heel at one end and my hip at the other end to make tension through the back of that leg. I'm breathing, I'm checking my shoulders are relaxed and down. Checking them out of 5 out of 10. And then the other leg comes up in the air. And then we're going to come down, abs on, so your pelvis doesn't rock. Your lower back is gently into the floor. So remember, you could bend the leg or not take it down as low. So modify the move for what works for you today. So we're going to go for 10. Good. Keeping that banded leg straight. Good. One more time. And then that leg is going to come all the way to the floor. And now I'm focusing on pressing that leg down into the floor. So I'm going to probably have to back off through the hamstring stretch to enable me to press down as much as I can. I'm trying to flatten the back of the leg into the floor as much as you can. If you have good muscly glutes, it's going to be hard to get the back of that thigh down to the floor because your bum takes up some of that space. So that's a good thing. Breathing. And then coming just to let go, and then take the band into the other leg. So now we're going to go into inner thighs with the band. So I'm going to have my non-banded leg bent and slightly out to the side like a butterfly. And then we're going to take our straight leg, banded leg, out to the side as much as we can. So I'm holding across my body with the band, keeping my elbows into my side so I can keep my shoulders down. So I'm not having to kind of hold the band and fight with the band. I'm using my arms against my body to help me brace. So I'm really opening up through both legs. I'm breathing, I'm pushing away through the heel. Trying to relax my upper body as much as I can. So breathe into where you feel the stretch. And as you breathe out, see if you can let it go. So let the tension go. So again, we want to try and stay in these positions for up to a minute. So if this is hard for you to hold, a modification would be to have your legs up the wall and take your leg out to the side. So that would be another way of doing it, so your leg can be supported against the wall rather than kind of suspended in midair. Last couple of breaths, then we'll bring the leg back to center. We'll change over. And we'll bring our non-banded leg into butterfly, so out to the side. And then I'm taking the band across my body or your strap, bracing my elbows into my side, shoulders down, and then I'm allowing that leg to come out to the side. And I'm breathing. So both legs are opening. I'm tightening the front of the thigh, so keeping that quad nice and active, keeping that knee straight. I'm breathing, I'm monitoring my intensity. If the leg is shaking, that is a sign that you are too far into the stretch. If you're rolling over to this side, that's a sign that you are too far out. So your pelvis wants to feel level and that weight is equal on both sides of the pelvis. You shouldn't feel like you're rolling to one side. So last few breaths here, breathing into where you feel the tension, and as you breathe out, try and release the tension. And then we're going to do one final stretch with the band for the IT band. So we're going to switch leg again. So this time we're going to come across the body. So from here, we'll take the leg across. So easier would be to keep the non-banded leg bent so you have more support. Maybe that's sufficient for you. If you want to make it a little bit harder, you can take that leg out the way, which will allow you to let this leg drop down a little bit lower. I do want this hip bone to stay on the floor though, rather than let that leg come all the way over. So trying to press this hip down into the floor. And so that's kind of like, that will tell you how far you can go. So as soon as this starts to lift off, then you've gone too far. So again, now pressing the leg as straight as you can, bracing the elbows into your side, shoulders are down and away, breathing. So depending on where you're tight, so for me, I feel this quite strong in my calf at the side, and then coming up into this lower portion of the IT band. Some people might feel it a lot more intense through this upper portion. Remember, it's coming all the way down the leg. So it really depends where's tight for you. I know my calf on this side is typically quite tight, so I'm feeling more tension in my calf than I am in my IT band, and that's okay for me because that needs to be stretched out. Let's change sides. So you can start with that bent leg, test it out first, bring that leg across, keep that hip down, breathe. So again, first thing for me I feel is my outside edge of my calf. I try and straighten my leg. You can take the other leg out the way, pressing that leg actively down to the floor. So don't just let this leg be willy-nilly down on the floor. Keep it nice and straight. Shoulders are down, elbows are braced into your side. So look at the angle of your leg. You want the knee to, so you're kind of turning the leg into the side. So have a look at the angle of the leg. You're breathing. You're making sure that the hip is staying down on the floor so it hasn't lifted up. because that's your sign that you've gone too far. You're making sure that that bottom leg, non-banded leg stays active. You're breathing, checking that front of the thigh is contracted, the kneecap is pulling up the thigh. You're lengthening through that whole leg. So if I was to relax my toes a little bit, then it completely takes it out of the calf for me. But I like flexing my toes and getting a good calf stretch at the same time as stretching down through the outside edge of my leg. Okie dokie. So those are our 3 banded stretches for today. So from there we're going to go into a hip bridge march with straight legs. So to enable us to have straight legs, we need to elevate our legs onto a chair or the bed or something like that. So you could start off for a modification of having your elbows drive into the floor and seeing how it would feel to do a hip bridge with your legs straight, and see how that differs to when we've done our glute bridge with our legs bent. What is the difference between those two things for you? So typically the straight leg is going to give you a lot more hamstring activation. So you might feel your hamstrings more when you do this. So let's try 10 of these. We're at 8 so far. Breathing out, squeezing the bum to lift up, opening up through the front of the hips. 9. And then 10. So the next thing we're going to do, we're going to hold the leg up and we're going to add a march. So you're going to bend one leg in and then the other leg in. So if that feels too intense for you, you could try this march just with your bum on the floor and see how that feels. Or, so we want to be working those hip flexors, or you come into that elevated position and then you bring one leg in and then the other leg in. So what we're looking for is that the hips don't rock around as you pull the leg in. You stay pressing through the foot that's pushing down into the box or your bed. So you really need to be actively pushing down with your foot to keep the hips lifted. So the other thing we don't want to see is that when you come in, that the hips drop down. So you want to be able to maintain that straight line through your body. Pressing the elbows into the floor is going to help keep that rib cage pulling down and the abs engaged. And you'll just do as many as you feel you can with good technique. Then you'll come down and have a little rest. And then you'll try a second set. Again, for as many as you can do with good technique. Maybe that's 5, maybe that's 10, 15, 20. So, but be really conscious of, am I doing it with good technique? So let's try another 10 together. So driving the elbows into the floor, lifting the hips up, trying to keep nice and level as you press the leg into the box and pull your knee into your chest. So again, we don't want to go too quick because we want to make sure that we're noticing whether our hips are dropping side to side. So nice and controlled. Making sure you feel the abs are on. You can press into your tummy and see, do you feel contracted in your abs as you pull the legs in? We'll do 2 more on each side. 1 more on each side, and then we'll go ahead and rest down. So you should have felt activation through the abs, through the hamstrings, and into the glutes. So those are the things that you want to think about. We're going to activate through the hip flexors next, and we're going to do a straight leg raise. Maybe I'll show you from side on. So you'll sit with your feet out in front of you. Now, if you feel that that is a challenge just to sit upright with your legs in front of you, then you're going to grab a pillow, maybe your foam roller or a block, and that under your bum is going to give you much more height. Because what we're going to do is we are going to go into some straight leg lifts. So we're lifting one leg up and then the other leg up. So I'm tightening my quad to lift my leg. And with or without the support under your bum, you want to think about trying to keep your weight forward. That would be the harder position. If you need to, you could take your hands behind you. See, I can get a lot higher with my hands behind me. It's an easier position. It doesn't require as much abdominal strength as when I'm here. I'm really having to use my abs. So, again, if that feels hard, then elevate yourself up. You could add a little bit of assistance with your hands if you wanted to. And we're really thinking about lifting up through our hip flexors and the front of the thigh. So full position without support, you would be here, lifting and lowering. So look at the quads. You should see the quads tighten as you lift the leg. Trying to keep your weight, kind of your hands forward or taking the hands behind, pressing and lifting. And again, you would do as many as you can within your minute. So you could break it up into smaller sets of 5, 10, have a little rest, shake your legs out, and then go again. So always good to make a note of how many you do in one session, and then when you revisit it, you can see your progress and how you've increased your strength and mobility over time. So Shin Box is next. So we're going to go into that 90-90 position. I'm not too worried about angles today. So just sitting so you have both legs in that kind of bent position. Again, if you want to have extra support, your hands will go behind you and you're going to lift the legs up and over, and then your legs will bend to the other side. So let's just do a few gentle ones, using the hands as much as you need to, or not, to just windshield wiper our knees side to side. Make sure that you're breathing. You could add a little bit of a rotation and look around, breathing. So if you want to add another level, when you get round, you can add a little leg lift on that inner leg. So scooch around and lift the leg. Scooch around, lift the leg. So having your hands on the floor would be easier, or you could keep the hands off the floor as you lift the leg. So your choice, whatever feels good for you, or no leg lift and rotation, using the hands as much as you need to, twisting round, or you could just stay with your hands behind you and let the knees drop side to side in that windshield wiper position. So a really nice one to loosen off those hips. And then from there, we're going to finish in a laying on your back position with your knee into your chest, but we're going to use the foam roller to elevate our hips. So I'm going to use a foam block for under my head, and I'm going to take the foam roller under the back of my pelvis, and I'm going to lay back. So I'll find my block for my head, and I'll adjust so the foam roller is under my hips. You could have a foam, a bolster or a pillow, or whatever feels comfortable for you. So when you get to that position, you'll extend one leg over the foam roller, for example, and pull the other knee into your chest. So I'm just going to interlace my fingers, pulling that knee in, making sure this leg that's on the floor, the toes are pointing up and that leg stays active, and you're trying to actively push that leg down to the floor. And we're going to do some breaths here. So if this feels too intense with the foam roller underneath your pelvis, just slide the foam roller out. Again, if you feel tension in the neck or your head is tipping back, then a good idea to have something underneath the head to support it. If it feels pinchy in your hip, take your knee a little bit further out to the side and give yourself more room in that hip joint. Okay, so we're going to do 5 breaths here. So you can make them as long as you're able to on your inhalation, breathing in. And then when you breathe out, try and match the count for your inhalation on your exhalation. So if I breathed in for a 6 count, I would exhale for a 6 count. So just trying to even the inhalation and exhalation. You could use the compression of the thigh against the stomach as a tactile cue for you to breathe into. So trying to press the belly into the leg to get that tension into your belly breath. Relaxing the shoulders, make sure your shoulders aren't up by your ears with you holding onto this leg. Trying to release the tension as you breathe out. And then we're going to bring the other knee in. Hug that knee in, exchange legs, interlace the fingers around the shin on the other leg. If that feels too intense, you could also interlace your fingers around the back of the knee would be another option to make it less intense. So shoulders back and down, taking the knee a bit out to the side if it feels pinchy in the hip. Active through that leg that's over the roller. So pressing that leg down. And then again, once you feel like you're in a good position, start focusing on the breath. So remember, you could breathe out through the mouth. You could sigh, trying to breathe in through the nose with a closed mouth. Scan your body, see if you're holding tension anywhere and see if you can let that go. And when you're ready, you're going to take your straight leg to bent, foot on the floor, the other leg comes to join it. You'll go into a glute bridge to lift the foam roller from underneath you. You'll let the knees come down, and let's do a little knee hug and side to side. And then you'll roll yourself to your side and all the way up. And that is the end of the session for today. Good job, everybody. We'll see you again tomorrow. Thanks for coming.